Thank you very much, Cheryl, and thank you, delegates. I'd like to start by reading an opinion piece I found in the Baltimore Sun that I think captures what many of us are feeling today. It reads, "Many factors beyond the school affect student performance. Family life and expectations, community involvement, cultural attitudes, economic background, and parental care. Schools are too often expected to make up for whatever may be lacking in the greater society without adequate resources to do so successfully." Sounds about right, huh? It continues. "True reform, therefore, lies in providing the resources to give personal attention to students, not in bureaucratic testing and threats of punishment for poor test performance, with new tests trotted out each time the old ones are discredited. Insanity has been defined as doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. Yet the test pushers seem undeterred, convinced that if we can just get the right testing program, we can solve educational problems. Meanwhile, attention and support are directed away from the things which could really make a difference." Well, our dear friend Jane Stern couldn't possibly have imagined how insane the test pushers must be, because she wrote this opinion as president of our association in 1993. And we sure as heck haven't gotten off this never-ending treadmill of standardized testing. I actually would like everybody to stand up for a minute. Stand up. You probably need to by now. We're going to see how many versions of state tests you've all been around for. Everyone here, just about, has probably experienced the PARCC exam. But if you were around for MSAs, which should be almost all of you, stay standing. See? Okay, now if you remember working in schools during the MSPAP days, stay standing. And if not, you can have a seat.
Taking it doesn't count.
Yeah, Cheryl says taking it doesn't count. But we're not done yet. Who was around for the Maryland functional tests? Look at that. Okay, I was too. You can all take a seat now. Thank you very much. You know, in Maryland we say, if you don't like the weather, wait a minute, it's sure to change. Well, if you're a teacher or a support professional in schools these days, and you don't like the tests or the standards or the curriculum, wait a minute, it's sure to change. When Jane was president, MSPAP debuted, and then State Superintendent Nancy Grasmick took great pains to note that the new test in its first year couldn't be expected to truly reflect student performance. Sure enough, in the coming weeks, a new interim state superintendent will make a similar announcement about PARCC's first-year results. And despite pouring time and resources into test after test over the years, we still don't have universal pre-K. Too many of our class sizes have grown to over 30 students, and the number of Maryland children in poverty has more than doubled over the last 20 years. We have counties that fund education at the legal minimum, and we have a governor who takes pride in withholding tens of millions of dollars from our public schools. But of course, the tests, even as they indicate nothing more than the socioeconomic difference and the opportunity gaps between affluent and low-income students, must go on. This is where we stand in the education debate today, in what feels like the seemingly endless cycle of so-called reform. Policymakers remain distracted from addressing the seemingly endless cycle of poverty. Let's be real. No kid is testing his or her way out of poverty. It's up to us to change the conversation. Maybe, just maybe, it's time for a new generation of reform, put forth this time and developed by educators, by the folks in the classrooms and the media centers and the school buses and the cafeterias who actually know the names of the students this is all about. What do you think? Too crazy of an idea? Let's look at what happens when educators lead the conversation and lead the way on big changes that make our schools better. The past shows the power of thousands of educators standing together to deliver real results for their students. We can go way back to 1904, when a teacher by the name of Irving Twilley, an active member in the MSTA, worked with 2 other association members and a friendly state legislator to win an increase in the state sales tax for the purpose of funding public schools. In Twilley's speech about activism at the MSEA's annual convention right here in Ocean City, he said, "We must either have schools or jails. And at the present salaries of many teachers and the style of architecture of many school buildings, it's much cheaper to support the schools." 89 years later, in 1993, MSTA held a 12,000-person rally against proposed budget cuts. I know Jane was there, I was there. How many other people were here? Those cuts don't heal. This was pushing the General Assembly to reverse course and raise tax rates on the highest earners to fund public schools. Over the following decade, educators worked with other public education advocates to win passage of the Thornton Funding Plan, a state formula that's helped our schools reach new heights, including 5 consecutive years as #1 in the nation. Educators standing together have won countless fights through the years. Duty-free lunch periods, integration of our public schools, collective bargaining rights for both teachers and ESPs, state matches for local teacher salary increases, professional development standards, and much more. Just last month, we launched our latest effort to lead the profession, our Less Testing, More Learning campaign, in a new push to reduce the role of standardized testing in our schools. The campaign featured 10 of our members speaking directly to the public about exactly how the testing obsession has played out in our schools. Lost time, shortened curriculum, terrible stress. The power of their stories, your stories, has directly translated into the success of this campaign. Nearly 10,000 parents and other Marylanders signing up online to join our movement. Important conversations with state and local elected officials about policy changes to meaningfully reduce testing. News stories and editorials from across the state in support of our campaign. And our polling has consistently found that the #1 concern among members and voters is too much standardized testing. We're going to lead the way on this campaign to reduce testing, and we're going to get it done. I want to share one of my favorite stories of the campaign from Rachel McCusker, a Carroll County music teacher and current Teacher of the Year. I love it because Rachel not only makes a great point about what students lose in subjects we don't test, but also shows the power each of us can have on individual students. Let's take a look.
Standardized testing has had a huge impact on what's happening in the classroom and the teacher's ability to deliver really great quality instruction. Anything that isn't tested is put on the back burner. I had a young lady who this year just finished 5th grade, and she's very, very shy, painfully shy. She never even smiled. And she joined chorus in 5th grade. And I got an email from her mother. And in her mother's email, she thanked me for having chorus because her daughter was smiling. She said she comes home, she smiles, she's happy, she's walking around the house singing. She came out and auditioned for All County, for our honors chorus, and made it and participated in honors chorus. And she has something she is now proud of that makes her walk a little taller and puts a smile on her face. Now, if she hadn't been given the opportunity for chorus, would we have ever found that, or would she have lived her life without that smile on her face, continually searching for that thing that filled her soul? And it was a simple act of 5th grade chorus. I fight to keep my chorus afloat. Parents are afraid to let their kids leave class in order to come to chorus for half an hour a week. We are completely changing what we're doing to fit the ability to pass the test. And I think we're losing out.
We shouldn't have to fight to keep chorus for our students. We just shouldn't have to keep having this fight. But if we don't stand up and explain exactly why chorus matters to students and how the failed education reform policies of the last few decades are why we even have to fight to keep a well-rounded education in our schools, the public is never going to know what's at stake. So, Rachel, I can't thank you enough for speaking up for all of us in those ads. And thank you to the 9 other members who also told their stories in those videos. If you are in those ads and you are in this room today, would you please stand up so we can recognize you for your leadership? But our campaign isn't just about ads. It's about members across the state stepping into leadership roles to reduce standardized testing. Member-led time-to-learn committees are doing work in nearly every county in this state to listen to educator concerns about testing, to help determine which tests are valuable and which are not, and to work with members, parents, and community members to fight for the changes and reductions to testing that educators want and students need. Look, educators invented testing. Educator-designed tests can be useful tools for us. But if a test doesn't help inform and improve instruction, if the results don't come back for months, and if it hopelessly disrupts the school day, it needs to be improved or it needs to go away. MSEA will be leading on this issue and supporting locals and your time to learn committees as you lead on this issue, because we know the majority of assessments are mandated at the local level. And so the organizing and positive change can and will happen county by county. If you're serving on a local Time to Learn committee, please stand up. Come on. You all are doing incredibly important work, and you have the thanks of this association and the appreciation of all of our members, our students, and parents across the state. I'm incredibly excited about these efforts, not just because we really need to get testing under control, but because it's the start of a proactive, educator-led agenda to make our public schools better. We aren't going to just sit back and defend against bad ideas. Just like we've done throughout our history, 150 years, we're the ones who must set the agenda with our own good ideas. We see the problems up close every day. We know what students need in order to do better in school. We need to speak up, and we need to work with parents and allies to get it done. Because let me tell you, Governor Hogan is trying his best to ignore the voices of educators. I've asked him multiple times in private and in public forums to meet and partner with us on reducing standardized testing. Each time he's promised to meet, and then he doesn't return our calls. MSEA was supposed to have a representative on the new State Standardized Testing Commission. We submitted Cheryl's name. Now, if you know Cheryl, you know that in addition to being a former Baltimore County Teacher of the Year and teaching in a Title I school most of her career, she knows her stuff when it comes to testing. I'm hard-pressed to think of someone better qualified for this commission. The governor's office refused to even interview her and broke protocol by naming someone in her stead whose name we never submitted. He did the same thing with the names submitted by Maryland school boards and the superintendents. If there's one thing you deserve, it's respect. You deserve to be heard. And rest assured, when someone tries to cut us out of decisions that affect our schools and our students, we don't take that lying down. We organize, we fight, we make sure our voices are heard. We'll do that on this issue, and we'll do it on any other issue at the state or local level, because that's what we must do, and that's what we've always done. Today, as we look back on 150 years of building up the public education movement in Maryland, I believe we've reached a pivotal time in our history. Now is the time to be heard. We don't have to be permanently stuck in this education reform Groundhog Day, where every day we wake up once again getting ready for a new test and a new set of ideas promoted by people who don't even know how to find their neighborhood school, let alone their way around a classroom. We won't just lead on reducing testing. We'll also continue to lead on fully funding our schools. Governor Hogan's refusal to release $68 million in education funding while falsely claiming the money will go to our pensions is preposterous and unacceptable. We will continue to lead a coalition that says our state's economy and future depends on investing in our schools, not cutting them. And we'll lead on real strategies to help our students. and attack the obstacles associated with poverty, not the mirages of voucher programs that send tax dollars to private schools, or lowering standards and accountability to attract charter school profiteers to Maryland. We'll lead on community schools that provide services that matter to our students and their families. We'll lead on an opportunity dashboard that makes sure the resources are spent on things like lowering class size and after-school programs. We'll lead on ideas that work for our kids, not for a corporation's bottom line. The question for me and everyone in this room is how? How, with billions of dollars being poured into the privatization of schools and the destruction of educator unions? How, with a governor who refuses to meet with educators and idealizes a presidential candidate who wants to punch us in the face? How, with what should be natural allies confusing the illusion of different public schools for a few students as a solution for lifting up all students? How can we stop with all the distractions and have a real debate about how to make our public schools engines of opportunity for every child? How can we change the conversation? We do it one conversation at a time. We can organize communities calling for real change throughout the state, one conversation at a time. Much like walls are built brick by brick, movements are built person by person, one conversation at a time. And we have the people and the stories on our side. Maybe it's talking with a first-year educator in Wicomico County about the challenges they face. Maybe it's talking with a parent in Howard County about what kind of schools they want for their kids. Maybe it's talking with someone from the other side of the political aisle about what our schools could be. Because building great public schools should not be a partisan issue. It reminds me of this story, the starfish story. Maybe you've heard this one before. Maybe you've even told it to your students. Here goes. An old man had a habit of early morning walks on the beach. One day, after a storm, he saw a person in the distance moving like a dancer. As he came closer, he saw that it was a young woman, and she was not dancing, but reaching down to the sand, picking up a starfish, and very gently throwing it into the ocean. "Young lady," he asked, "why are you throwing starfish into the ocean?" "The sun is up, and the tide is going out. And if I do not throw them in, they will die." "But young lady, do you not realize there are miles and miles of beach and starfish all along them? You cannot possibly make a difference." The young woman listened politely, paused and then bent down, picked up another starfish, and threw it into the sea past the breaking waves, saying, "It made a difference for that one." The old man looked at the young woman and thought about what she'd done. Then he joined her in throwing starfish back into the sea. Soon others joined, and all the starfish were saved. Look, this isn't my association. It isn't your association. It's our association. It's only strong when we all act together with a unified voice. And in many ways, activism in the union is an essential part of being a great educator. The work we do to advocate for our students is inseparable from the mission of doing everything possible to help them accomplish their dreams. So my ask of you as you leave this year's RA is to have those conversations. Throw those starfish back into the sea. Think of 10 colleagues and neighbors you're close to who haven't yet gotten involved in the association or public education advocacy. Make a list and then plan a sit down with each one of them and have a conversation about ways to get involved. I can tell you how important these conversations are, because I wouldn't be in this room today, let alone the MSEA president addressing the entire representative assembly, if it weren't for one person reaching out to me. Way back when, in a year that I will not be mentioning, I passed my colleague in the hall and I asked him how negotiations were going. And he responded, "If you want to know so bad, why don't you get involved?" So I did. When my building representative left, where's Steve Yeesh? He's around here somewhere. I stepped up to fill the role. I soon became chair of the negotiations team in Kent County and then became the president. And the rest is history. All because of a conversation in the hall that made it very clear that I needed to get involved if I wanted to see things change for the better. That is the power every single one of you have. And if we all unleash it, we're going to make one very loud statement in school board meetings in every county, in Annapolis, and in Washington, D.C. The corporate reformers can't make that kind of noise. They just don't have the people, the credibility, or the great ideas. But we do, and that's how we're going to win for our students. There is so much power in this room right now. When I visit your local associations and your schools, and I see the work you're doing, it serves as an incredible inspiration. We still have a lot of work to do to win resources for our schools, to meet the demands of a changing student population, to tackle poverty head-on with real reforms, and to significantly reduce standardized testing. We have a long way to go, but we're getting there. And it's because of the belief you have in what our schools should look like and what our communities should be like. It is such an honor to make progress side by side with you. Thank you for all you do each and every day, for inspiring our students, for inspiring each other, and for being the best educators, activists, and leaders in the country. Thank you, MSEA.